share the screen. All right. So just to have a recap. So we have already seen the working of a voltage follower peak detector. This peak detector is actually the basic circuit which is used for sample and hold. So just a modification of the voltage follower peak detector. The only addition to this is a switch in the form of an NMOS transistor. So this NMOS transistor is driven with the help of the clock. Now, all of you know that whenever I want to sample things, I'm supposed to have a reference clock. Now, based on this reference clock, am I audible, all of you?
Yes, sir.
So this reference clock will be the sampling, let us say a clock, sampling signal, and what we are supposed to sample is Vi. So correspondingly, we must get samples in accordance with the clock. So this is your input signal Vi. This is VCLK, and we are looking at the output. So what we'll see, the output is of this nature. Let me draw that completely, that you'll be able to understand it. It is not drawn to the scale, so there may be some. Okay. So here we have the capacitor voltage is 0, and then in this particular section we see that the capacitor is charged, and then it will stay on like this, go up like this, stay there like that. Again it is going to be like this. This. So whenever there is a pulse, at the end of the pulse, the capacitor value, the voltage is held on the capacitor corresponding to this value, whatever is the instantaneous value at this point. For example, here, so if you look at this place, in this place, so whatever is the value is held and it stays there for till the next pulse arrives. Okay, so this basically is called as the sample and hold circuit. Now the interesting things over here are, or rather the important things are, that we are supposed to, this is the ground line, this is the capacitor voltage. Now if I have something like this, it is quite possible that the capacitor is being not ideal, and of course there are some discharge paths available for the capacitor. This value may decay a little bit like this. Okay, ideally it is expected to be a straight line till the next pulse arrives. So this is the voltage across the capacitor, and this basically is the change in the capacitor voltage delta V. This is your T1 and this is T2. If I measure it up to this. So T1 is called as the acquisition time, and T2 is called as the holding time. These two parameters are very important for your sample and hold circuit. Now, most of the A to D converters have the sample and hold circuit as the front end. So during the sampling time or acquisition time T1, C1 is charged via MOSFET Q1. So during T1, capacitor C1 is charged via Q1, that is the MOSFET. So look at this. C1 is charged via MOSFET Q1 because the MOSFET is on. So what we have over there is RDS on. Please remember that we have already studied the MOSFET, so we know what is RDS on. When sampling time is T1, which is basically 5 times RDS on into the capacitor C1. Okay, so after 5 time periods, capacitor C1 is charged. Okay, to almost 99.3%. So you have to make sure that this particular pulse, this particular MOSFET remains on for 5 times the time period, and then only you can guarantee that the capacitor is charged to 99.53% of the input voltage Vi. So this actually results in error of 0.7%. So this is error in sample amplitude. Now, if I increase the sampling time T1 to 7 times RDS on into C1, the capacitor is charged to 99.9%. So we have an error of only 0.1%. So I have to wait. So this T1 has to be more. Now, if T1 is more, what will happen? What will be the speed of sampling? So speed of sampling will be compromised. You understand that, guys? If I keep T1 more, naturally the sampling, and if the signal changes, then there will be a problem. So if I want to go for very high accuracy, my sampling, the time that is required T1, that is a sampling time, has to be more, and this puts a restriction on the speed of the sampling. So many times you have to strike a compromise. If you want a fast sampling, you have to keep this T1 small, but suffice with, let us say, some percentage error, 0.7, 0.9, and so on and so forth. So it depends on what exactly do you want to do with your signal, or and basically what is the frequency of your input signal. Now during hold time, T2, capacitor C1 is partially discharged. Okay, and we can use the same equations as that of the peak detector to find out how much it is going to discharge, and correspondingly we can use the same equations for calculation of the value of C1. We've already done this. A2 should have a very low input bias current. Remember, the C1 is connected to A2. So this bias current should be very, very small. Very, very small. So that the capacitor value, voltage across the capacitor will not discharge much. Okay. So this delta V will be small. If this delta V is small, naturally I can say that the error in sampling is also small. At the same time, C1 should also have low leakage dielectric. We have already seen this during the peak detector. So it is required to use a MOSFET. As I said already, the MOSFET that is required so the MOSFET should be with the bulk terminal, or also called as the body, connected to ground. This is very, very important. See, the 3-terminal MOSFET will not work here because the body is internally connected to the source, and which actually creates a problem during the time when input signal decreases. Okay, we'll see a simulation to support our claim. All right. So let me first finish off with the signal conditioners also, and then we'll go for the simulation part. All right. So the last topic that is remaining is signal conditioners. I think I've already have you given a look at the unit number 6, that is ADC and DAC. I've already uploaded my videos over there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let us go for the signal conditioners now. So what exactly do you mean by signal conditioner? So the very first question is, why do we need signal conditioning?
So your voice was breaking in between.
Now is it okay? Hello?
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Guys, am I audible now?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, I think there was a call drop again. Okay. So, for example, if I want to send the signal, you know already what is a sensor, right? So what is a sensor? What is a sensor?
So transducers.
Yeah, basically it comes under the generic category of transducers. So a transducer, what do you mean by a transducer? A transducer is a component which transforms one form of energy into another form. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now in transformer, we have two categories corresponding to sensor and an actuator.
Actuator. Yes.
What does sensor do? So it is a class of transducer only, but it converts any form of energy into electrical form.
Yes, sir.
And what does an actuator do? It transforms electrical energy
to other forms.
to any other form.
Other forms.
What is an example? Can you give me an example?
So microphones.
Exactly. Your microphone is a sensor, and what is an actuator?
The speaker.
The speaker is an actuator. Okay. Of course, actuator. There are so many different. In fact, you can have a DC generator and a DC motor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, in actuators, you have relays. Then you have solenoids, and so on, and the list goes on. All right. So basically,
Yes, sir.
a sensor is used to convert any form of energy into electrical form. Now, this electrical energy, I am supposed to, many times the output of the sensor is very, very less. It is in even millivolts or microvolts. Now, it is quite possible that the processing circuitry is at a physical distance from your actual, let us say, the physical process. For example, a temperature sensor, we are looking at a temperature sensor which is measuring the temperature in a, let us say, a temperature chamber or heat chamber. Okay, and your processing circuitry may be a little bit away from this physically. Now, if of course, this is a weak signal, so I have to amplify it, and then I have to give it to, let us say, the ADC, and then finally to the microcontroller. Now, many times nowadays microcontrollers have built-in ADCs, but then what happens is this: along this line, we have the noise which is coming into picture, and the noise is random. All of you know, most of the times the noise is in, I mean, almost always the noise will be in terms of some voltage or voltage spike. All right, are you able to understand
Yes,
that?
sir.
Okay. Now, if, say, for example, my temperature sensor at, let us say, the temperature conversion rate is 10 millivolts per centigrade or Celsius. Okay. So, corresponding to that, even if I have amplification factor of 10, if the temperature is 25 degrees Celsius, can you tell me what will be the output here? The sensor converts at the rate of 10 millivolts per degree Celsius. So at 25 degrees Celsius, what is the sensor going to generate? 10 millivolts
250 millivolts.
into 25 degrees Celsius,
25
which
degrees
is going to give me
Celsius.
250 millivolts. And I now apply an amplification voltage amplifier of gain 10. So my output voltage is going to be 2.5 volts, right? Is that correct, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now fine. ADC will do his job, and then correspondingly you can get some readout on some LCD or something like that. That's fine. But now, if there is a voltage spike, and this spike is, let us say, of 0.5 volts, and it is additive, obviously, since it is plus 0.5, it is going to be adding. So, what will be the voltage? So, here the output voltage corresponding to 25 degrees Celsius is 2.5 volts. And now, because of this noise, what will be the voltage appearing over here?
3 volts.
3 volts.
3
3 volts
volts.
correspond to how much? How will the microcontroller interpret it? We have to work backwards, no? So I'm getting 3 volts.
Yes, sir.
My gain, amplifier gain is 10. So 300 millivolts divided by the conversion factor 10 millivolts. So it is interpreting how much? Which is
30 degrees
wrong.
Celsius.
Which is absolutely wrong, isn't it? You are actually having 25 degrees over there, and you are measuring, I mean your readout is 30 degrees, which is wrong. Who is responsible for that?
Noise.
This noise is responsible.
Noise.
And so this may create a big problem, and that is the reason why we have to introduce what is called as a signal conditioning at this end and also at this end. So if I talk about a generic block diagram, it will be something like this. You have a sensor, then you have the amplifier. It is called as instrumentation amplifier, by the way. We have already studied instrumentation amplifiers, isn't it? Then you have some signal conditioning, convert it to back into some other form, voltage form. So voltage to something and something to voltage. Okay, and then you give it to your ADC and microcontroller and all those things. What is this voltage to something? Now, instead of transmitting the voltage in the form of signal in the form of voltage, what if I transmit the signal in form of current? So if I transmit the signal in the form of current, will this solve the problem? Yes or no? See, noise will be in the form of voltage. It will not affect the current. All right?
Yes, sir.
So naturally, if I convert from voltage to current and from current back to voltage, even if there is a noise, my signal will not be degraded by that noise. Are you able to understand this?
Yes, sir.
This is basically the need of signal conditioners. Okay? So this can be done not only with this voltage to current conversion, that is one method, V2I. You can have voltage to frequency conversion also, or you can use a fiber optic cable to transmit your signal. V2F will be something like frequency modulation. So even if there is noise, it won't affect the information because information is encoded in the form of frequency variations in FM. Here in this case, obviously, voltage may get current, but current will remain the same and it will not be affected.
Sir, you are not audible.
Right? But just for your information, there are other signal conditioning methodologies available. So let us see the very first one, V2I converter. You have two different flavors in that. One is called as a floating load V2I converter.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
So this V2I converter, so this is the part of unit 6 or 5?
it is a part of unit 6 actually.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. So let us have a look at how you can generate that using our operational amplifier again. And it is very, very simple. This is where your input signal is connected to the non-inverting terminal. Again, this is your VID. This is R1. you have IB, the bias current, you have the output current I naught, here you have VF, this load is RL, which is floating. What do you mean by floating load? Floating load means you are not connecting. Say for example, you are having a voltage source like this and you are connecting it like this against a grounded load, where you call this as the circuit ground and explicitly show a connection like this. So this is the circuit ground, this is a grounded load, whereas this is called as a floating load. Understood the difference? So here any one end of this RL is not connected to ground. That is why we are calling it as a floating load. All right. So assuming
Yes, sir.
VID equal to 0, why is that so? Because of the virtual short. What will be the value of VF? If VID is 0, what will be the value of VF? The voltage at this point. Yes? If inverting and non-inverting terminals are at same potential, non-inverting terminal is at V in potential, what will be the value of VF?
So it will
V
be
in.
same as V in.
Yes, it will be V in itself. And you can see that IO flows through this R1 also. Why? This current flows to the ground like this. Why? Because IB we can assume to be 0.
0. Yes, sir.
Since IB is equal to 0, then I naught or IO flows entirely through R1. But what is the value of, what is the voltage across R1? What is the voltage across R1? It is VF. And what is the current
VF,
flowing?
sir.
What is the current flowing through R1? It is I naught.
I naught.
So can I say I naught is equal to VF by R1? Getting this? Look
Yes,
at the
sir.
voltage across R1. It is VF. Current flowing through that is I naught. So naturally I naught can be calculated as VF by R1. But what is VF?
Sir, V in.
So I can replace it here and simply, very important result. What does this say? This V in voltage, V in gets converted into I naught.
Current I naught.
So we have V to I conversion. Understood? And it is
Yes, sir.
independent of RL. This is the most important statement. Do we have RL in calculations? Not at all.
No, sir.
So we can say that I naught is purely because of V in and that is how the voltage conversion will take place. All right. So this is your voltage to current converter, but the flavor is floating load. Now let us see the grounded load. V2I converter. So this is your grounded load V2I converter. Call this as VA and call this voltage over here as VB. Current flowing here is IR3. Current flowing through the load will call as IL. Current flowing through this will be called as IR2. Okay. So again, we have VA equal to Vin. This should be straightforward, isn't it? VA is equal to Vin directly. Now again, by virtual short concept, VA equal to VB. So therefore, VB will be equal to Vin. And also we have, what is the output voltage VO? Hello? Hello, am I audible?
So you were not audible. Now
Okay,
you are.
that's fine. Doesn't matter. Now I am audible, no? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I have marked this particular area, and what does this circuit resemble? Which amplifier? Which amplifier does this resemble? Inverting or non-inverting? Guys, hello? This is an inverting amplifier or a non-inverting amplifier? Hello? Am I audible? Guys? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible.
Why are you late in responding? So what is this amplifier? Inverting or non-inverting?
So inverting.
Yeah. So I can write VO as what? What is the equation for non-inverting amplifier gain? Minus RF by
So
R1
minus RF by
into
R1 into Vin.
Vin. Because It is an inverting amplifier.
Yes, sir.
Now, this we'll call as point A and apply KCL at point A. So, what is it? If you apply KCL, what is the equation that you get? Add all the currents. IL plus IR2 plus IR3
Yes.
is equal to, of course, assuming
Zero.
IB as 0. This current will be 0. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So therefore I can write I1, sorry, IL as minus IR2 plus IR.
Plus IR3.
That I can write as V in by R2 plus V in minus VO by R3. See, you can understand, if you can understand this. VB is also equal to V in. So here again I am seeing a V in.
Yes, sir.
So IR2 is nothing but V in by R2. Similarly, what about this IR3? Voltage here is V in. Voltage at the other side of R3 is VO.
VO.
So V in minus VO.
Yes.
Look at the current flow direction. So V in minus VO by R3.
R3.
Okay, na? So I can write this as minus
Yes, sir.
V in by R2 plus V in minus, what is VO? What is VO?
Sir, minus RF upon
Yes,
R1 into
minus RF
V1.
by R1 into V in. So minus of RF by R1 into V in. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This divided by R3.
R3.
Now let RF by R1 be equal to, the ratio will be same, R3 by R2. We'll make it to be equal to K. Then I can write IL as minus V in by R2 plus V in plus K times V in by R3, which can be further simplified as minus V in into R3 plus 1 plus K into R2 divided by R2 R3. But R3 is K times R2. We have made it that way. So IL is minus V in into K times R2 plus 1 plus K into R2 divided by K into R2 square. This can be solved as V in into KR2 plus R2 plus again KR2 divided by KR2 square, which further is minus V in into 2 times KR2 plus R2 divided by KR2 square. I can again pull out R2 common and cancel it. So minus V in into 2K plus 1 divided by KR2. Or I2, IL is minus V in by R2 into 2K plus 1 by K. So what does this tell you? That IL is minus V in by R2 into some constant.
Yes, sir.
And does this involve RL?
No, sir.
So this is IL is again independent
Of RL.
of RL. But IL is a function of V in. So we have V to I conversion. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So this is the second version of flavor. Have you understood this?
Yes, sir.
We can have the last thing as the current to voltage conversion, because we want to convert it back, no?
Yes.
So it's again a very, very simple circuit. This is the current which is flowing from, coming from your V to I. This is your RF. And this is your RL. This is your VO. So I'll call this as I in. The entire I in goes here because IB is 0. So the voltage here, let us call it as V2. Here the voltage we call as V1. This is VO, we have already marked. Now here, what is the value of V1? It is 0. So what will be the value of V2? Again, by the virtue of virtual short, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So V2 is 0. So one end of RF is 0 and other end is VO, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So what is the value of VO then? It is this
So
I
it will be
in
simply
into RF.
RF. Yes, sir.
But look at the direction. It flows like this. It means that this voltage 0 volts is higher than VO. So you're going to get a negative sign here. What do you see again? The output voltage is a function of
The input current which we have. Sir, you're not audible.
hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. You are not audible.
I know there was a call drop again. So as I said, output voltage is a function of input current. So what do I get is
Yes, sir.
an I to V converter.
I to V converter.
That's it. So this is how you have to you can convert voltage to current and current back to voltage. With that, we have finished with the syllabus. I'll be able to show you some simulations for the sample hold Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there was again a call drop. So let me switch to multisim. Okay, are you able to see the multisim screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a peak detector. I'll start with peak detector. And you can see that I'm using what is called as an AM signal, amplitude modulated signal. Okay, I hope you are doing this right now. Communication, analog communication.
Yes, sir.
So you know what is an amplitude modulated signal, right?
Yes, sir.
So the red trace again is the amplitude modulated signal, and what I am trying to do is I'm trying to detect the peak. So as you can see, we are getting the peak. The green trace is the peak. Okay, so that is the demo for your peak detectors. Most of the time, these peak detectors are used for demodulating the amplitude modulation. You must have used that in your analog communication course, right?
Yes,
You must
sir.
have studied this
Yes, sir.
demodulators.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let me go to sample and hold circuit. Let's change the trace color or do you see that? Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
So what we are getting is a sampled version of the input signal. My input signal is a sine
Yes,
wave,
sir.
and I'm getting a sampled output out of it. So that is the sample and the hold circuit. Make sure that you are using this type of MOSFET with 4 terminals. All right.
Okay, sir.
Let me see if I am having. So this is your V2I and I2V converters connected back to back like this. and even if I change the voltage, corresponding change in the voltage happens to be there. Irrespective of the noisy conditions. This is what I had designed for demonstration purpose. So this is the current and current back to voltage. So whatever is the voltage here, you can see here 2.85 volts. Now if it is decreased, I can have it back as 1.5 volts. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is the demo for V2I and I2V converters. All right. So with that, we finish with the syllabus and all the demos. For ADC, what you are supposed to do is go through the lectures. The videos are already uploaded, and I have uploaded a couple of simulation demos also for ADC. All right.
Yes, yes, sir.
So just have a look at it and even try to replicate the same circuits and simulate them at your end. All right.
Okay, sir.
Fine. So we'll stop here.
Thank you, sir.